If somebody is trying to get a dangerous horse off their hands, there's a possibility that they could drug the horse. So, hey farm fam, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new, welcome and welcome to another video. So as you guys know, we recently brought home June, our new mare that's so dirty right now. She just got done rolling in the mud. Look at this like caked mud on her. Ugh, so gross. But anyways, just Florida things in the summertime for our horses. And you guys hear the guineas behind me, no worries, we'll try to get through this. So as you guys know, we have 4 other horses, but June is our first horse that we have bought since we have been on YouTube. The other horses we had when we started YouTube, and I love for you guys through the process of us looking at June and purchasing June and all those things. Previously on my channel, I've done in detail what it costs to have a horse, buy the horse, everything like that. So in today's video, I'm going to break it down on the process of how to buy your first horse. This is a beginner's guide on how to buy your first horse, the process that I do typically when I've bought all my other horses, but there's so many different ways that you can do this and make this happen. So everything that I say in this video may not correlate with what others tell you to do. So just keep that in mind. It is up to your discretion to do things in the order and manner that you want. Or if you have a close friend or family by you that instructs you to do it differently, definitely take whatever advice you decide. But today's video is just going to be a little beginner's guide of how it's worked out for us in purchasing our 5 horses. So we're hanging out here with Trigger because Trigger was my first horse that I ever purchased on my own and went through all the steps of purchasing a first horse. So if you guys are excited for today's video, make sure you go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel down below. Make sure you turn on those post notifications so you don't miss any of these videos, and of course have a chance to my post notification shout out. Alright you guys, step 1 of purchasing your first horse and the whole process is figuring out what kind of horse that you want, what you're looking for, what discipline you're looking for. So if you're looking for a horse that is disciplined in Western or English, or even the specs about the horse, if you want a horse that's more of a jumper, has barrel racing experience, roping experience, anything of those sorts, if in particular you're looking for something like that, or if you're just looking for a horse that's like a trail riding horse, a kid-friendly horse, a husband-safe horse, there's so many different criteria, so you basically just need to figure out exactly what you're looking for. And if you care, even if it's a mare or gelding, a lot of people don't have preferences. Typically, they say that geldings are more calm, so just basically what you're looking for, you need to figure out those things first. And then obviously if you care about colorings or things like that, that's like the least important thing in my list of when I'm looking to purchase a new horse. The coloring is like the last bit of what I really care about, but that's just me personally. A lot of people are really interested in the coloring. I will say for June, she was our first horse that we actually were trying to nail like coloring, and I guess also as well that we wanted a mare just because we had all geldings, and as you can see all of our geldings kind of are like the same color, so we are not particular in color. For me personally, I look more for their training, discipline, how safe they are and everything like that, and then the coloring is like last in my list. We got really lucky with June because she's absolutely beautiful, and she also checked off our list of other criteria of being safe, well-trained, young, and a mare, because that's what we were looking for. But all the other horses, we did have different criteria. Like I wanted a young horse, that's why when I got Cash, because he was young. And for Trigger, I wanted something safe that was going to be really fun on trails. So Trigger is actually gated because for my first horse, I wanted something that's just going to be fun on trails. And typically in my experience, gated horses tend to be easier on trail riding. So that's why I went with a Morgan that was gated for my first horse. Now moving on, once you figure out what you're exactly looking for, kind of like the places, I get this question a lot. Where do I buy my horses? Where do I find my horses? So there's like a galore of places. So actually many years ago, almost 5 years ago now, I actually found Trigger on Craigslist. Now I feel like Craigslist is a thing of the past and we don't really use Craigslist much anymore, but back then it was pretty relevant to be able to purchase a horse on there. I personally don't really recommend like Craigslist for your go-to source because there's so many other resources on how to find and purchase a horse these days. I will say though, back then I didn't have as many friends and connections in the horse world, so I kind of just was basically at this point where I was like, where do I begin? I got really lucky finding Trigger on Craigslist, contacted the person, and the rest is history. Craigslist being one of the resources to find and purchase a horse. Like I said, there's many other better resources nowadays, including Facebook. Facebook is a hot commodity when it comes to looking for a horse. You can actually sell animals on Facebook, so it might be a little bit hard to exactly go through with the whole transaction through Facebook, but there's a lot of great resources, a lot of horse groups, a lot of equestrian groups that you can find horses. So I definitely recommend finding local equestrian groups that you can add yourself to and just kind of search. It's almost like an archive of what everyone has out there, just to kind of get your feelers out there and get started. I do recommend, even if you're on the brink of just starting your horse search, join a bunch of local equestrian groups so that you can start to make connections. Connections are huge in the horse world, so the earlier that you can start, the absolute best that you have in your journey of finding a horse and keeping a horse. Additionally, as far as Facebook groups, I do recommend also finding like a local trainer if you need to take lessons or anything like that. It's a good idea to find a trainer, get acquainted with them, and they can also help you in your search of finding a horse. They more than likely know a lot of people in the horse industry that are selling horses, looking to rehome horses, things like that. And then also there is great websites out there. I know one off the top of my head is like horseclicks.com or something like that. Tons of actual websites that people have to pay to put their horses on there. So they are legitimate listings of horses. So definitely there's so many resources out there to find horses. There is like an influx of horses. They're everywhere. Even if you wanted to go the rescue route, there are many horse rescues that are looking to rehome horses as well that are also a perfect fit for what you're looking for. Now that we've gone through basically how to find your horse, the resources and all those kinds of things, and what you're exactly looking for in a horse, once you've nailed that down and kind of have found possibly the horse that you're looking for, I highly suggest figuring out where you're gonna keep the horse. If you live on land and have your own pastures, make sure that your fencing is adequate and good enough to keep a horse in before you go and purchase the horse. You just really don't want to put the cart before the horse. I know that's punny, but you want to make sure that you have an adequate and safe area for the horse to be. So if there's any loose material or anything like that in the pasture, make sure you clean up all that. You don't want to be doing that when the horse is already in your pasture, because oftentimes when you bring a brand new horse to your area, they're a little bit freaked out and things like that. So you just want to make sure that it's as safe as possible, that you don't have any fences that they could push into and break or anything like that. And then if you don't have your own land and a pasture for your horse, it's a little bit more difficult. You have to find a place to board your horse. So definitely before you go and actually purchase the horse, again, those connections in the horse community are extremely important, especially when it comes to finding a place to board your horse. You want to make sure that it's a safe place, they have adequate fencing, just like if you're in your own home. You want to make sure that the barn manager is trustworthy and that the other boarders are also trustworthy, and that your horse is going to be taken care of extremely well, how you would like to take care of it if you were taking care of it on your own, depending on which also services that you like, if they offer self-board or if you need full-time board, all of those things. It's really important that you figure all of those things out before you actually go and pick up your horse. Also, a little tip to get acquainted to the horse community is go into your local tack stores. I promise you, local tack stores, the people who own them are usually just like family, and they know all the people in the horse world because all the other people in the horse world are going and stopping in, buying feed from them, buying tack from them, all of those things. So local feed and tack stores are super important. All of our feed and tack stores, we have created great relationships with them. We have found so many people through just going to our local feed and tack stores. So super important if you're looking for a spot to board your horse, go there first. Highly recommend if you don't have any connections in the horse world, start there and you will build a ton of connections on the way. As well as those Facebook groups, you can create a lot of connections through Facebook groups, because finding a place to keep your horse is super important, almost just as important as finding the right horse. So now that you've decided what type of horse you're looking for, whether it's breed, discipline, how safe it is, etc., and now you know the resources of where you can find that horse, you've pretty much pinned down what you're looking for, you found a place where the horse is going to stay, now you need to actually go and see the horse. I think it's really important to do those things first before going to look at the horse, so you're not wasting anyone's time, wasting your own time, wasting the horse owner's time, things like that. And just being prepared, because when you go and see the horse, there's a possibility that you could decide that you want the horse once you go and see it. So having those things lined up is really important, in my opinion, first. I know there's so many other ways, like I said in the beginning of this video, and the steps that other people like to do it, but this is just the way that's worked for us and what has been a good experience for us. So once you go and look at the horse, I highly recommend bringing someone with you that's knowledgeable in horses, a friend, a trainer. Like I was saying, get those connections, because if you've never bought your first horse and you don't have any connections in the horse world, you could possibly get scammed, for lack of better words. Horses are 1,000-pound animals, and you want to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a risky position or taking home an animal that you can't care for. So I highly recommend bringing someone with you, even just bringing someone that's not even as experienced, but will be willing to talk to the person to make you feel more comfortable. But totally, definitely recommend, if you aren't fully experienced with horses, bring someone with you that is experienced. And then you obviously need to see how good the horse is under saddle and being ridden. So in my opinion, never get on the horse before the owner does. You want to make sure that the owner is comfortable riding the horse. So have the owner ride the horse, whether it's walk, trot, canter, things like that. Just make sure that the owner is doing those things before that you get on the horse. If you feel comfortable riding the horse after, I advise doing so, because if you're about to buy the horse, you want to feel comfortable riding the horse as well. If you are new at riding, I do suggest that maybe you could see if you could lease the horse first, if that would work out better for you in your situation. But you want to make sure that you're comfortable and feel safe on your horse and this is exactly what you're looking for. If this is your first horse, these are probably things that you're wanting to be looking for, rather than if this is your second or third horse and you're looking for different things about the horse. But for first horse, I would think naturally you were looking for something that's safe. So something that I kind of hate to say, because I hate to think that people would do this, but making sure and being on the lookout that the horse isn't drugged. I know that's such a weird thing to even think about, but it's so prevalent in the horse community. If somebody is trying to get a dangerous horse off their hands, there's a possibility that they could drug the horse. So there's so many different cues that you can look for, and there's a lot that you can even look online. I know one of the big things is if their ears are drooping. I'm pretty sure you would generally be able to tell if a horse is drugged. They're going to be stumbling, their head's going to probably be really low to the ground, things like that, unless the horse is really old, but then even so, it's going to look like it's out of it. So it is important to make sure that you're getting what you are thinking that you're getting, and you're not just looking at a horse that's been drugged, and then when you get home you end up with a big problem. So that's why I say it's really important bringing someone with experience that knows what they're talking about, knows what to look for, because a horse that's been drugged is not a really good situation. They're obviously hiding things like that, and it is such a sucky thing to have to think about, but it is something that happens all the time in the horse world. So just something to be on the lookout of, especially when you're buying your first horse. At the end of the day, you are going to be responsible for this 1,000-pound animal. So kind of like hand in hand with making sure that the horse isn't drugged or anything like that, I do highly suggest a PPE, and that's a pre-purchase exam to get done on your horse. So I will say we've had good luck, and out of the 5 horses, we've only had a pre-purchase exam done on 1 horse. And I will say that's me not doing my due diligence. I highly recommend doing your due diligence, especially if you are buying a high-priced horse, and even if you're not, because a low-priced horse that has issues as far as health goes can become a really expensive horse. If you go back and watch my detailed cost breakdown of how much it costs to keep a horse, vet visits get really expensive for horses. So it is important to just do that pre-purchase exam in the beginning of purchasing the horse so that you don't run into anything in the long run where you could have something that's physically wrong or internally wrong with your horse. I did do a pre-purchase exam on June. I will say, full disclaimer, I'm a lot older now than I got my first horse, a lot more responsible, and especially since I have all these animals, I need to make sure that I wasn't going to be incurring more expenses getting June further than just feed and grain and stuff like that, and obviously unexpected issues. But if there was some type of ailment that horse had, I wanted to make sure that we caught it in the beginning. We definitely didn't need another horse, so I needed to make sure that the horse was adequate in health and everything like that. And she was our most expensive horse. Full disclosure, I wanted to make sure that I was making a smart move since it was going to be our 5th horse. So again, even though first horse, you're coming into a lot of expenses. Horses are expensive, so you want to make sure that you aren't going to be going into something thinking one thing and not getting a pre-purchase exam, and then having to fork out a lot of money and deal with a horse that could potentially have chronic illnesses and things like that. So pre-purchase exams, they do range anywhere from like $500 to like $1,000 depending on the practice that you go to and where you're located. They could even be more. That's just kind of like generally in my area, but they'll go through everything. And the more extensive an exam that you get, the more expensive it's going to be. For June, we had every single one of her legs x-rayed. She got the works when it came to June. So just in my personal experience, we have gotten lucky with the others of our horses, thank God, but there could be a chance that you may not. Pre-purchase exams are there for a reason, so utilize them. All equine vets are very familiar with them, so it's nothing going to be foreign. So now that I pretty much have given you what you need to find the horse, figure out what you want, you went and saw the horse, made sure that it was what you were looking for as far as riding and personality and everything that you could possibly think of before. You've got your pre-purchase exam, everything came out with flying colors. Now it's time to really go over pricing of a horse. It's super interesting. A lot of people will have firm prices, negotiable prices, things like that. It's hard for me to even really go into this because everyone has their own way of doing things. Every seller is going to be different. Every buyer is going to be different. You could create a really good connection with the seller and, you know, work out some deal. A lot of people will do like month-to-month deals sometimes. Even lease to own. There's so many different options. I almost feel like sometimes buying a horse is like buying a car because there's so many different payment terms when it comes to buying a horse. Like I said, people will do lease to own, people will do month to month, people will do leasing where you pay the board fees and things like that. There's so many different plans that you guys can come up with because generally horse owners do want the best for their horse when they go to sell their horse. So that's just going to be up to your discretion and what the arrangement is with the seller, but just so you know, there are a lot of different options out there. Now that you have decided on how your arrangement is going to be with purchasing your horse, you love the horse, it's time to take it home. Now you need to figure out a way to transport your horse. This is so important. A lot of the times, even sellers will help transport the horse to the location, whether you're taking it home or you're taking it to a boarding facility. If you are taking it to a boarding facility, definitely ask the barn manager there. They might have a trailer that you can borrow, or you can possibly pay them to rent the trailer, or they can even help you haul the horse back to the boarding facility. This is super common, so don't think that things like that are out of the ordinary. This happens all the time. Not every single horse owner owns a trailer. And I'll be honest, I would say maybe like half of the horse owners actually own a trailer. We didn't own a trailer until we had like our 3rd horse. and then we figured it's probably time that we should get a trailer. So now that we have 5 horses, we do have 2 trailers, but it is not impossible to have a horse without a trailer. Luckily with equines, equine vets are super common to come right to your facility just because of the fact that not everybody has trailers. So I would say that a trailer isn't a necessity. Obviously in time, if you find it in the budget to purchase a trailer, it's going to be a great investment. You'll save on all those farm call fees when it comes to vets. If you want to freely haul your horse to any type of preserve or things like that, take it trail riding at a facility, things like that, obviously it's going to be really helpful to have a trailer. But we did it for many years without a trailer and just having friends with trailers and things like that. Getting that transport once you figured out that you want to buy the horse lined up is fairly easy, but just find somebody that you trust. If it's local and you can follow behind them, that's even more perfect. But if you are getting a horse that's many miles away, you really want to do your due diligence in finding a hauler that you trust, because hauling is a very delicate experience. You have a 1,000-pound animal behind a vehicle on the roadways, and you just want to make sure that that person knows what they're doing. But there's so many opportunities out there. Again, get those connections, go to your local feed and tack stores, find those connections early on, and that will save you the trouble of cramming, because buying a horse is really exciting, and you just want to make sure that the excitement doesn't get too overwhelming where you kind of like drop the ball in some instances that are very important. Last but not least, I'm in my tack room because in my eyes, the essentials, this is kind of like the last one. You don't want to go out and buy all this feed and hay and tack and stuff before you even decide that you're going to get the horse. So once you know that your horse is going to be transported, it's time to do even the more fun stuff, and it's to get those feed and hay and those buckets and all those things. So once you know that your horse is going to be en route to going to your facility, it is time, in my opinion, to go out and get those things. Figure out what you want to feed your horse. I do recommend that you start to do your due diligence on that. Look up whatever research that you need to look up. Figure out the best diet that's going to be for your horse. I recommend asking the seller what they're currently feeding their horse so that you transition them the right way if you choose to put them on a different feed or hay. But when you're moving them to a new place, you do want to keep some things constant for them, in my opinion, and just keeping maybe them on their current regimen of feed and hay for the first couple days as they get acclimated to the new scenery and everything like that, and then start to gradually change their diet as you please. We currently feed Purina Senior. You know, you guys have seen our feeding routines tons of times, but we are consistently on this Purina Senior, places on a different feed just because he's an easier keeper. So even just going through those things and figuring out for the first couple of days, let the horse kind of adjust and then figure out if you can adjust different things in its diet, if it's missing something or if it just doesn't need anything like that. So getting those supplies, because you are definitely going to be needing feed and hay that first night. Essential first-hand supplies are obviously hay, and then I recommend getting some buckets, whether they're going to be feeding buckets, transporting buckets. If you're at a boarding facility, you're going to want to have some extra buckets to put your grooming stuff in and things like that, which will all come in time. If you want to get your grooming stuff out of the way in the beginning, you can, but definitely feed and stuff like that is going to be essential. So buckets, lots of buckets. And one of my favorite things when buying a new horse is picking out a halter and lead rope. I don't know why, but I like to give all my horses like different colors, and it just always puts like the realism effect of I'm about to get a new horse when I buy a new lead rope and halter specifically for that horse. It's always just been a thing. Whenever Mike and I would be en route to go get a new horse, we would go pick up a halter and lead rope from Tractor Supply. So it was always just a thing. We always knew like which color we're gonna get or things like that. So it just adds to it. Get them their own halter and lead rope. All right, you guys, well that's basically like the beginner basics of purchasing your first horse in the way that we've done it. We've done it 5 times successfully. All of our horses have come to every facility that we've been at, healthy and good and in good shape with everything down to the list that I've done. So this is just what works for us. As I said in the beginning, this may not be what works for you or the people that you know, but if you need a starting guide, hopefully this helps and isn't too complicated, because there's so many different little things that we can put into there that can overcomplicate it, but just to keep it simple throughout the process so that it's fun. You make sure you know what you're getting into, you're not getting overwhelmed, and you're making a smart, responsible decision, because again, I have to be an advocate for horses and purchasing horses, and you have to make sure that you know exactly what you're going into when you're going to be purchasing a horse. It's a big commitment, and there's so many horses out there that don't have homes, because some will go into it not understanding how big the responsibility is, and just doing your due diligence is so important when it comes to finding the right horse for you. I feel like if you are looking for a horse and you want to be involved in the horse world, there's going to be a horse out there that's going to be perfect for exactly what you're looking for. So just keep on looking till you find the right one. But that's basically my beginner's guide of how to buy a horse, how we've done it. So if you guys like today's video and learning how I go about buying a new horse, make sure you go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel below. Make sure you turn on those post notifications so you don't miss any of these videos. And if you want any more beginner guide videos like this, make sure you let me know in the comments down below. Today's post notification shout out goes to... Alright you guys, I love you and I'll see you in the next one.